If you are a guardian of a sound-sensitive dog, maybe a dog training professional who works with dogs that struggle with sound sensitivity, stick around. If you maybe have been really working on training and getting better at helping your dogs with sound sensitivity, but you've found that the common things that you recommended just haven't been working, maybe you've even worked with professionals, but you're still kind of feeling stuck in this area, well, this is going to be for you, and I'm excited to have you here. This was a vote by the popular vote by the community, so sound sensitivity was on everybody's mind, and I'm here today to talk a little bit about how we work with sound sensitive dogs. If you haven't met me before, my name is Karishma War. I am head of training at Calm Canine Academy, and I've been a dog trainer now for coming up to a decade. And I work especially now and specialize in working with dogs who struggle with sensitivities to noises, people, environments, complex cases, basically in challenging environments. And sound sensitivity is such an important topic, one, because it is involved in so many other behavior challenges. So if your dog struggles with people, with dogs, with generally being fearful, often sound sensitivity comes along for the ride. So I'm excited to kind of get to this core challenge that affects so many people in the community. And it's also something that's really relevant to me personally. Myself, I'm a pretty sound sensitive person, and both the dogs in my house are sound sensitive in very different ways. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about them. As I go through today, feel free to put any questions you have in the comments. I see a few people saying hi, hello, it's nice to see you guys. If you're watching the replay, also feel free to put questions in the comments and I will do my best to get to them. So I think the first thing that happens when dog guardians come to us to help them with their dog's sound sensitivity is a sort of audit or an understanding. So we're going to start there with an understanding, and then we're going to move into talking about healing and how we actually see progress after that. So the first thing we have to do is assess what's going on. And some people are talking to me in the chat here about specifics, and exactly that's what I'm looking for. Very basically, I'm looking for an assessment of your dog's behavior with noises, and then also the whole dog outside of just specific reactions to noises. But let's start with sound triggers. We want to look at what the triggers are. So in fancy behavior terms, we call these antecedents. What are the things that lead to the behaviors that brought you here, right? So, one second. Obi, can you cut that out, please? I'm doing a live. You can't be making noises. Sorry. You know what it's like. What are the triggers, right? So we might be looking at dogs like Callie the Springer Spaniel, who's very reactive to vehicle engines, but isn't stressed out by other noises like gunshots. And you're kind of like, what is going on there? These are the details we're looking for. The specific constellation of noises and scenarios in which your dog struggles will inform how we treat them. So this is super important. Let's look at what other people have said. My dog hates when trucks back up and beep, but a fire engine is totally fine. I'm loving that you guys are picking up on this trend which is that sometimes these behavior challenges don't express in a way that makes much sense to us. We can see sound sensitivity from triggers that range from fireworks to, gunshots to beeps to coughing. It can be really anything, any sound, but there are some common sort of refrains, and usually what I'll say to folks is I want you to start writing down a list of everything that pops to mind that your dogs are quite sensitive to. Someone here saying that their dog is sensitive to the sound of the elevator in their apartment hallway, and she barks. So perfect, exactly, great example of the sort of triggers that we want to be writing down. After those triggers, your dogs do something. Obi, can you stop? Lay down. After they hear those noises, they do something. So what is the behavior? Is it that they're trembling and hiding? Is it that they're barking and rushing towards the noise? Does it go on for 5 seconds, 10 seconds? What happens when the sound is gone? What happens if it's a persistent sound? These are the kind of details that we're looking for. Lots of you guys are saying that they're barking, and this is very common, especially in our clients whose dogs live in urban environments and apartment settings. Barking is probably one of the most common behaviors that we see, but also hyperactivity, destructive behavior, and even urination and defecation. Like, it can be quite extreme in some cases. When it comes to severity, That's an important factor here. And at CCA, we often differentiate between dogs who are like just sensitive to noises and dogs who are phobic. So that's the terminology we use, sound sensitivity versus sound phobia. I'm going to talk about the differences, and my two dogs in the house, they're a perfect example. We have Hera the poodle, sensitivity. We have Obi the shih tzu, phobia. Now, sensitivity, to me, again, this is just my definition, is sensitivity to specific noises, especially noises that predict the occurrence of something that your dog might find a bit stressful. We often see like increased activity, barking, whining sort of stuff, and the noises that are commonly associated with sensitivities are like dogs barking, people, voices, doorbells, animal sounds. If your dogs are sensitive to people coming in the home, chances are they might be a bit sensitive to the sound of a voice outside of the front door. They kind of make sense. Sensitivities tend to make sense to me. So when you're listening to your dogs, which is observing their behavior, and you're looking at the patterns, I want you to think, like, does this kind of make sense to me, why they might be reacting this way? It might not, and you might kind of go, I don't understand what you're saying. That's okay. that might be the behavior consultant's job. And I have to say, getting eyes on a case like this is really helpful always. I'll say this over and over again as we go through this live. In general, sound sensitivity, though, back to the point, they kind of tend to respond well to basic behavior change protocols to some degree or another. So that's sound sensitivity. Hera is a great example of this. He hated people. People coming in the home were the worst. Men, absolutely not. Also dogs. And if he heard dogs barking, if he heard people around the home or on walks, he'd be very upset. And the behaviors he performed were often like staring, barking, lunging, growling, running around, that kind of stuff. Someone saying that their dog Gus was attacked by a dog last March, and it was very traumatic, and now he barks probably at dogs he can hear even, and dogs he can see. So exactly, that would be like a sensitivity to me that makes a lot of sense. Let's contrast that though with phobia. Now, sound phobias tend to be more significant and pervasive aversions to noises, and they tend to be much more potent and make much less sense. So common phobia sounds are like beeping noises, clicking noises, kitchen kind of appliance type noises. We might see dogs really phobic to the sounds of flies buzzing or things like that. Like there's like a constellation of noises that to me, I'm always like checking, does this kind of look phobic? And we tend to see these dogs completely losing it, to be perfectly honest. We'll see not just a bit of barking, we see trembling, shaking, salivation, destruction of property, panting, elimination, hiding and escape behaviors. Fireworks and storms, I think, are probably the most pervasive phobias around sounds that we see from our dogs. That's very common to see dogs who really struggle, and that's often really heartbreaking to look at because there's nothing we can really do. And often guardians come to me and saying, like, nothing I do is helpful in that moment for them. Sound phobias tend to spread much faster. So the fear tends to almost be like a fire. It catches a light, and everything around the phobia also becomes very sensitive. They can become very sensitized to. So Obi the Shih Tzu has firework phobia and storm phobia, and around the winter period he starts to show stress signs just as the sun's setting, because he associates that evening time with potentially there will be fireworks or potentially there'll be a scary night storm. He was originally, he'd be stressed out by the pops and bangs of fireworks, but then any clicking sound, any popping sound, any time of day, he'd start shaking uncontrollably. Sound phobias, and I think sensitivities do look different. And when people are coming into our programs, maybe they're doing private coaching with us, or they're in something like Feisty Fido, which is our group program for dogs who struggle with a whole variety of triggers, sounds being a core one. At the beginning, we're doing this assessment. What are the triggers? What are the behaviors? Do these fall under the phobic category or the sensitivity category? Sometimes frequently we have dogs who show both. So Obi is phobic of fireworks and thunderstorms, and he's sensitive to the sounds of wings flapping because he likes chasing pigeons. right? And his sensitivity to the wing flaps looks like barking and lunging. His phobia to the fireworks looks like shaking, drooling, right? Very different responses, same dog. So those are the things that I'm often looking at. That's just the investigation into sound triggers, guys. And some folks come to us, we don't have all this information. We have to start doing data tracking over weeks sometimes to figure out the patterns. On top of just the details around the sound, we also need to look into the whole dog. Like, sound sensitivity doesn't exist in a vacuum. What we specialize in at CCA, what we do when we're coaching our clients, is we look at everything. So Feisty Fido, it's like a 3-month program, group coaching program that we take you guys through the process. It's a program that deals with sound sensitivity, reactivity, through any reactivity in the home, like through the windows, people coming in the home, etc. Reactivity in stranger danger, dog issues, issues with prey. It even touches upon issues with resource guarding, leash walking, and car rides. People look at our program and they go, what the hell, that's so broad. And I'm like, actually, it's one of the most detailed and nuanced programs, because we understand that not one of these things exists in a vacuum. They all interconnect and inform each other. So as well as understanding the sound triggers, we need to understand everything else that's going on with the dog. And in our programs, the first week, we spend basically at least really doing a thorough audit and getting to understand everything about the dog, and then the details about potentially like the sound sensitivity. So here, for example, the bigger picture for his sound sensitivity is that he had loads of other behavior challenges. He had issues with people, he had issues with dogs, handling, he had issues with me and fear of me. Everything else in the world basically scared him, literally everything. So we were dealing with this issue within a very complex picture for him. Obi, the Shih Tzu, has sound phobia, actually behaviorally really sound outside of the sound phobia. Some reactivity to prey animals. Come on. But he's social, friendly, sweet, resilient. That's really important, right? So if we have a case where we're seeing just one thing and it's so extreme, like with Obi, he had this phobia to fireworks and to storms, that's going to be treated very differently to a dog like Hira, who has a lot of different challenges that we have to deal with. Some folks are going, I see, we have to actually think about this in the kind of bigger picture. And absolutely, you have to think about this in the bigger picture for sure. Otherwise, what we tend to find is that when folks come to us for help, maybe they've seen even 1 or 2 trainers, they've taken programs, they've done research on the internet that tried to DIY something together. And oftentimes, I think about it like, I'm a nerd, I watch Star Trek, okay? So I think about it like the switchboard on like a spaceship. Bear with me, go with me on this journey, right? And if you're looking at the switchboard, there are like 100 lights, and we need all of the lights to be green. If even one of the lights is red, the spaceship isn't going to fly, right? This makes sense. I'm the captain, obviously, in this fantasy analogy, right? So folks come to us with their dogs, and I look at the whole picture of the dog and I see, you've done so many great things, you've DIY'd, you've gone to this class, you've learned so many things, but there are a few flashing red lights that you haven't addressed yet. And I have to turn those red lights green. It needs to be holistic, it needs to be comprehensive, because it all exists, they all work together, all these different interventions. And that's kind of what I'm going to be talking about next as we move into this healing piece. Because I think where we can see success is this complexity, the way that we look at these dogs as whole individuals. And to be perfectly honest, when I was writing this live and like going through the overview, I was like, how do I even fit everything in? I can't fit everything in. And I'm going to just stop here and say that I actually have a full 1-hour webinar that's available for free on our website. It's like hidden, you can't access it from the outside. But if you comment on this live or comment on this post, the words sound 24, what was that? Sound 24, if you do it in capitals, so sound 24, no gaps, I'll send you the webinar for free. And that's like a full hour, which goes into depth about like so much more of this. For now, I'm going to say that this is something we can see extraordinary success with. right? It's one of my favorite behavior challenges to work with, and I am not gonna lie, we're really good at this. But it's gonna be more complex than a lot of the things that we might have seen. It's not about giving them cookies or throwing cookies everywhere after they hear a noise. It's not about sending them to a bed or a place or having them downstay while they listen to the noise. Actually, the solution is like a holistic, multimodal plan that we roll out systematically that's always individual to that particular dog. And we always look at the whole dog when we're enacting this. If you're in one of our programs, like Feisty Fido is 12 weeks, and we call it our foundation program, because it takes 12 weeks to fully investigate all the different areas. And we have a framework that we use at CCA called the HEAL framework, which it's a 4-part framework, and it takes guardians and trainers through all the different lights on our engine that we need to make flash green. And once they all flash green, what they say is, oh my gosh, it was like a wave of healing, like it happened all at once, like everything clicked into place and everything kind of flowed. That's what we're looking for. Again, Sound 24, if you're struggling to get the link, just DM me, I'll get it to you guys. And what I'm going to do today in this live is I'm going to talk about 4 key takeaways. The webinar will go into a lot more depth, but my 4 key takeaways that I think are something that the areas that are present in every single training plan that we do with any dog that comes through our programs. First key takeaway is about reducing their exposure to noises. So this might be something you've heard before, manage their environment so that they don't have to listen to those noises all the time. Now, I can tell you as someone who worked in New York City for 3-4 years and lived in an old pre-war big Brooklyn apartment building, that is very challenging in some cases. And this is actually a real art form in urban environments especially. And what we usually do at the beginning is we take a really thorough look at your environment, what the triggering noises are, where they're coming from, what time of day, etc., etc. And we slowly start putting in interventions and accommodations to reduce how frequently your dogs are having reactions, quote unquote, to noises. I'm going to say this, our goal is 0 reactions. Sometimes people are like, yeah, we've got it down. It used to be like, so many, now it's only 10 times a day. What do we do next? And I'm like, no. 10 times a day is too many. And I say this as someone whose dog Hera, when he was really struggling with this, was reacting up to 50 times a day to noises, having full stress responses before I figured this out. There are so many different things we can do. Off the top of my head, where you hang out in the apartment. Maybe you don't hang out in the front room by the front door anymore. Maybe you only hang out in the bedroom for a bit while we're working on this, or the whatever. Do they have access to the windows? Do they have access to everywhere in the house, or just certain spaces? Do we use things to drown out the noises, like mask the noises? If we do, where do we place the speakers? What do we play? What time of day, etc.? Sometimes we actually need to teach them skills to be able to manage and not have freakouts in the home. That could be anything from confinement to moving away from the window after they've seen or heard something outside. There are so many different skills we could teach them. And, in some cases we are really controlling and restricting their environment. And I say this as someone who really doesn't like to do that. They don't do that very easily, because I know that freedom is so important to these dogs, but so is like a regulated nervous system and a feeling of safety. And so with Hera, for example, when I first started tackling this, almost every moment of his day was kind of planned out. Like, he'd be in this space in the morning and then have a crate nap and then be upstairs and then be tethered next to me while I was working. It was all very planned, and it was an art form to enact all of this to make it work. For Obi, for example, we do things like make sure that we have access to the basement of the house. If there are fireworks, we go down there early and spend time down there. Or over Christmas, we were doing Christmas crackers, and I asked everyone, can you just tell me before you're doing crackers so I can remove Obi, because the popping sounds were really scary to him. So creating a plan to manage exposure to noises is absolutely key. And just because we've tried a few things doesn't mean that we've tried everything. And I always encourage folks to kind of come into our programs and come into this stage with curiosity, because there's so much we can do to help reduce and get those stress events down to pretty much zero. That being said, there are many times where that's not possible because of the environment, because of the severity of the phobia. And so my second key takeaway is about health, so anxiety medications and health checks. This is a huge topic, and we have lots of resources on this. So if you want more resources, you can DM me and I can show you where to go. In a nutshell, sometimes we literally cannot manage the environment well enough. Sometimes we need anxiety medication for sound sensitive dogs, especially if they're in busy environments. So when me and Hero were in Brooklyn, I was not able to start seeing real progress with him until I used a combination of managing his exposure to noises and anxiety medication, because even if I did all the management in the world, there was still that 10 times a day that I couldn't fix. I couldn't fix for him. And when we can't fix the external environment, we look internally. And anxiety meds, it's a massive topic, so I'm not going to go into it for too much detail, but in general, we need to look in that area for sensitive dogs in really challenging environments. And for phobic dogs, this topic of anxiety medication and health checks is paramount. For phobic dogs, it is an ethical obligation to immediately go to a vet and start interventions to help them if they're shaking, if they're trembling, if they are having these full-blown stress responses, like if their stool is affected, for example, if their play behaviours and eating behaviours are affected, that's when we need to go to a vet. We need to go to a veterinarian quite quickly and talk about what we can do to help them. On top of the anxiety management, we also have this other topic of medical challenges, health checks, and potential pain that's unseen and undiagnosed. Again, another massive topic, but with phobic dogs, I assume there is pain until proven otherwise. The topic of why and how to prove me otherwise is much bigger than this, and I have a free event coming up about that. It's pinned on our grid, so you can go and see if you want to join us for a deeper dive about that. But this second key takeaway of anxiety medications and health checks, physical health is at the core of sound sensitivity, whether that be stress management or the feeling of physical health in the body, so not being painful, not being in discomfort. As someone who struggles with sound sensitivity myself, I can say I also have chronic illness that causes me chronic pain. And when I am struggling with my pain, I am just vicious with my sound sensitivity. And so we have to double check, we have to look and really investigate this for our dogs. And again, like I said, a lot more resources are available on that, and let me know if you need any extra help with that. All right, we've got two more key takeaways. The third one is about fulfillment and release and stress release. And this is to do with the dog's schedule, activity schedule. What does their life look like? For many dogs who experience sound sensitivity and a lot of interconnecting other challenges, it can be hard to get them a fulfilled, rich life with joy and being a dog and, having fun because of the sensitivities that they have. And so my main kind of takeaways from working with hundreds and hundreds of clients about this is, one, not getting enough of certain activities can make sound sensitivity worse. And then number two is too much inappropriate activity can also make it worse. So you can be lacking, or you can have, it can be like I'm lacking this input, or it can be there's too much of this input. When dogs are lacking input, it's often decompression in nature, mental stimulation, variety, sensory outlets, breed-specific outlets, sleep, these areas. And within the HEAL framework, we have a whole module on activity, which goes into so much depth here. So that's something you can find in Feisty Fido or in our membership, and feel free to DM me. Actually, it's also something you can find a lot more depth on in the webinar, so just go and check that out first at least. So your dog might not be getting enough of these things. On the other side of the coin, there might be too much inappropriate activity going on. So inappropriate activities can be like, I used to take Hera on these long walks in Brooklyn and Manhattan, and I didn't realize that they were actually just sort of stressful and taxing for him, and he was tired at the end, but he wasn't like fulfilled and happy. He was like stressed and exhausted, and I didn't really understand, but too much of that was actually making his sound sensitivity worse, because it was just causing him chronic stress, as was like hours of repetitive fetch that I played with him, and trips to the dog park and daycare. All of that was just filling his body with adrenaline and stressing him out on a day-to-day basis, and actually made his sound sensitivity much worse. And similarly with Obi, my parents would leave him in the yard when he lived with them, and he would be chasing birds all the time because he was bored. He didn't get enough decompression, enough variety, enough mental stimulation, and he'd chase birds all the time. And it just led to this rehearsal of him going from 0 to 100 over and over again. And yeah, you bet it made his behaviors with noises a lot worse and a lot more extreme. So those are our first three. We've got managing their exposure, we've got health and anxiety medications, and we've got fulfillment. And the last key takeaway that I'm going to drop here is to look at their learning. What skills have you taught them that will help them navigate their sound sensitivity? And this varies from dog to dog, depending on the specifics of their behavior, their environment. But we're often teaching them skills that help us unlock success in other areas of the plan. So for example, if we're struggling with a dog that's barking out the windows and you have an open plan house and there are noises, we might be teaching that dog confinement in a pen or a bedroom or a crate, so that we can reduce their exposure to the noises. Maybe I take a look at this dog's switchboard and the lights, and I say, oh, this dog needs decompression. There's no decompression. I think that's going to help with their overall stress levels and massively improve our likelihood of success. And the guardians say, oh, but they're so scared of car rides, so I can't do that. Sometimes then we're working on the car ride so that we can unlock the decompression. And I've got like a whole list here in my notes that I just like blare onto the page of different skills that I will often use. So flight, relaxation, engagement around distractions, pattern games, body awareness, touch therapies, dialectical therapies, play therapies, developing secure attachment, recovery rituals, safety cues. There's so many different kind of little tools that we can use, like this switchboard, and choosing which ones you need for your dog and navigating that complex whole into, action steps for a day or for a week. That's the job of a behavior consultant. That's what we do. That's our whole job at CCA. And if you need any extra help, like I said, at the very least, comment sound24, one word, and we'll send you the webinar and you can watch that. You can learn a little bit more. If you're looking for a little bit more help than that, if you want hand-holding through this process, if you want someone to look at your switchboard and say, this week you need to do this, this, and this, that's where you can DM me. Maybe you DM me the keyword feisty. So feisty, and that kind of gives me an idea of what you're into and where you came from. And we can chat a little bit about your dog and what would work best for you, even if it's just some more free stuff, or I might go, hey, I think you should be in this program. This is what it would look like. I'm just going to check and see if there are any questions from anybody to see if I can answer anything for you guys before I finish up. But this was quite comprehensive. I feel like we went into this quite a lot. Cool. Folks are just kind of saying that it's been helpful and reflecting on some of the questions that I've asked, which I love. The reality with this, guys, is that like their behavior doesn't change until we change our behavior. We are in the driver's seat as the guardians, and so we are the ones who are have the power to make those changes that then will show us incredible results with our dogs. So excited to maybe hear from some of you, and someone's asking a little bit about Feisty Fido, so I'll answer it. They say, I understand that Feisty Fido is a group class. How much help is available? Great question. It's a 3-month group class, and I might have to do another live on this specifically, but you have one class a week, basically over those 12 weeks, and that's a live group class with your teammates. So in that class you go around the group and you get one-on-one time chatting with your trainer. So that's one sort of touch point every week. The second touch point is in the online classroom. We call that a trainer in your pocket, and you can send videos, you can send questions, and get responses from your trainers, and our trainers for Feisty Friday, they check every 5 days a week. Basically, you'll get responses from them, and it's 100% virtual, so it consists of the online classroom, the weekly sessions, and as well like a pretty robust pre-recorded syllabus. So if you found this useful, just know that we're talking like hours of in-depth content about specific challenges. Thank you guys for asking those lovely questions, and feel free to DM me. I can let you know a little bit more. And we can talk, yeah, the cost is, I actually literally have to check my own website to tell you what the cost of the program is, which is really embarrassing. I know we're running a sale right now, and I actually don't remember off the top of my head what the sale code is. So maybe you guys have to DM me. Yeah, the full price is $980 for the 3 months, but I think we're offering it for $800 with the sale. I don't remember the code, so please reach out to me over DMs and we can talk about it there. I'm sorry, terrible business owner. Good dog trainer though. All right, my loves, I'll see you guys soon. Thank you for joining and staying till the end. And remember to comment Sound24 to get that free webinar, everyone. All right. Cheers, my loves. Have a good one. Bye.